or hate Kabam, you gotta admit one thing. The 7-star rollout has just been really good so far. Out with the trash like Groot, and in with the gods like Titania and Hulk. But no one is perfect, right? Especially a big old company like Kabam. They might have done a good job with the 7-star rollout, but there are still some pretty questionable 7-star additions. And who are these additions? Well, let's find out. I have chosen one 7-star champion per class that I believe is the worst of the bunch. Now, for the rules here, I'm only including champions that can one day hit the 7-star basic pool, so no Kang, no Thanos, and no Guillotine Deathless, but I will include champions in the Loyalty and Incursion Crystals, so those champions are now on the board, and some one-off champions that I feel like aren't really going to be trophy champions. For example, Civil Warrior. But let's start off with arguably the best 7-star class, and that is the Science class. This class has an elite pool of champions featuring some of the best attackers in the game like Titania and some of the best defenders in the game like Photon. But where did they go wrong, right? In a perfect class, there is still some mistakes in it, and I feel like the newest addition to the 7-star Science class, which is Invisible Woman, takes the cake. You know, I hope I'm wrong, but I think Invisible Woman is going to be 7-star basic bound, and that is kind of painful because it does really put a hindrance on the 7-star Science class, because I thought so far it was essentially perfect, right? Even like the not so good ones like Spider-Gwen still do some pretty great things, but Invisible Woman just isn't cutting it for me. I think she is just so like impractical to play, and I feel like her value on defense is just completely washed up. So I think Invisible Woman is just a champion that I wish stayed in the past unless she got buffed. So maybe like one day she gets buffed and then I'll be happy with her as a 7-star, but as it stands right now, I think she is the worst 7-star Science character. Now, the skill class has a mix of pure attacking power and ruthless defense. It was honestly tough picking a worse 7-star here because I think all these champions have a use. Even Hawkeye and Jabari Panther with the new challenges have uses, but because of that, there is only one champion that I feel like doesn't have a certified use in the skill class, and this pick might ruffle some feathers, but I'm gonna have to pick a Ronin here. Now, I can just already hear the comments, like the fan base of Ronin just going crazy, but hear me out. I think, like, when your worst champion is Ronin, you know the class is a really good one, right? Because I think Ronin's a pretty solid champion. It's just, I don't think he has enough use in the game right now. Is that saying he's a bad character? Absolutely not. I think he is a pretty great champion as it stands right now, but it's just the 7-star skill class has been done to near perfection, and there has to be a worse champion, right? And unfortunately, I think it just has to be Ronin. So yeah, he's a good character, has some good utility, but I just see him used the least out of all the 7-star skill champions. And if it wasn't like for the challenges that are brand new, I would have given it to Hawkeye, but yeah, Clint Barton, he is just not popping off in the 7-star skill class. But moving on, the history of the Mutant class is quite the tale. Once known as the most dominant class in all of Mcoc, it has had a massive fall from grace in these recent years. Thankfully, there are some signs of a promising future with the addition of Onslaught, but while he's making waves as a 7-star, Namor is not, which is very ironic. Now this one hurts, obviously, right, because Namor is my second favorite champion in the game. But I will admit that, yeah, him being a 7-star was one of the most questionable calls in recent memory because, yeah, he really wants to be Max Sig, and 7-stars are just barely getting Sig stones. So yeah, it's gonna be a very long time until anyone can max Sig this guy, and even then, I feel like most people just won't use their Sig stones on Namor. So that's why this champion I think is the worst Mutant 7-star, because he was just put in a bad place at a bad time, and like, it's unfortunate because I think Namor deserves a lot better, but the 6-star can still be ascended, and he's still an absolute monster once he is ascended, but you'll see some gameplay of him on my channel later. But as it stands right now, 7-star Namor I think is the worst mutant 7-star, and it isn't really his fault either. But now moving on, the resurgence of the tech class has been quite the spectacle. With new defenders such as Red Skull joining the ranks, there is a lot of promise in this class, but sometimes the past still haunts the tech class. If you want an example, look no further than Kang the Conqueror. However, I'll be nice and exclude him from this list because he is a trophy champion that will just never hit the basics, but I will not do the same for Civil Warrior as he might hit the basics one day. Now, Civil Warrior I think is the worst 7-star tech character, and I do not know where to start. I think his buff was just like not really that good in the first place, and so for that reason, I feel like him being a 7-star was just completely unnecessary. And I think that he just doesn't offer much, if anything at all, so that's why I think he is the worst 7-star tech character. Just an unnecessary addition, and he is just so stressful to play, pretty much offers no utility, and yeah, just isn't making any waves in the slightest in the tech class. So yeah, my worst 7-star tech character is without a doubt Civil Warrior. Now the Cosmic class needs some help in the 7-star category. With the big 4 being too good to be added, we need to hope for some good champion additions, looking at you Serpent, or some good buffs. And I think the best prospect for a buff is of course Venom the Duck, who is the worst Cosmic 7-star by far, not including Thanos for trophy reasons. Now Venom the Duck is just bad, obviously, right? Like the ramp up is atrocious. He just needs to ramp up for so many fights in a quest, and the payoff is honestly kind of decent, but he just lacks utility, and yeah, like in the most important pieces of content, he just really cannot do anything. So I think Venom the Duck just was one of the worst picks of, I think he is the like worst 7-star like by far, because he was in the basic crystal, and I think besides Venom the Duck, the basic crystal was just honestly nearly perfect. He just ruined it, and I feel bad because they were gonna do some great things with that basic crystal until his name popped up in it, right? So yeah, Venom the Duck, he needs some love. He needs a buff easily, and like the Cosmic class in general just needs some love. I think Serpent's gonna do some great things, and you know, maybe Gladiator once he gets buffed as well. But yeah, please save us, Serpent. And the Mystic class is one of the most balanced classes in the game, with top tier defenders like Sasquatch just running rampant in battlegrounds, and elite attackers like Kushala just lighting up the contest. This class is thriving. Now, this was a tough pick because I couldn't include Deathless Guillotine, but in the end, I think my pick has to be Sorcerer Supreme, because I think every champion in the Mystic class is honestly pretty dang good, and I think it's like probably the most balanced class like out of all of these. But Sorcerer Supreme, I think she's a great champion, and I think her stock's gonna rise big time with like the new Alliance War meta. And yeah, I think once that happens, then this might be like a wrong pick, you know, but as it stands right now, I just haven't seen enough from her as a 7-star champion, and I feel like she just really hasn't made that much of an impact since her release. Now, I think she is still a very fun champion. I think she still has some very good utility, especially like the regen on block and all that. I think this champion has a great spot in the game, but I just think that the Mystic class is just way too good, and she is just slightly behind. I think a tune-up could do wonders for her, but also I feel like the right meta might just be enough to show how powerful this champion still is. So yeah, Sorcerer Supreme I think is the worst Mystic 7-star, but that's not saying much because this class is incredible, and I think that even she is still a pretty solid champion. But that's gonna do it for this video. I thought this was like a pretty fun idea, and I thought that I just talk about these characters. I think some of them aren't even that bad, like, you know, Ronin, Sorcerer Supreme, but then the other ones like, you know, Civil Warrior, Invisible Woman, just don't deserve to be a 7-star champion, I feel like. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on this video, and yeah, that's about it for me.